Welcome to Organized Chaos, the podcast dedicated to helping seven-figure companies grow to nine-figure ones by turning HR into rocket fuel for their growth. I'm your host, Nahat Kairala, and I've been helping companies do just that for more than a decade. In each episode, I'll dive into HR topics that have a significant impact on your company's growth and leave you with actionable advice that will help your business reach its full potential. Let's dive right in and start organizing all that HR chaos. Hello and welcome to episode 13. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about how companies need to transform their hiring practices as they scale. This is a critical topic because many companies fail to evolve their recruitment processes as they grow, and that leads to inefficiencies, bad hires, and ultimately expensive mistakes. Before we dive in, let me share some context on why this matters. As you've heard me say in previous episodes, hiring is often a haphazard process at many companies. But what worked when you were 20 people simply won't cut it when you're 200 people. The stakes get higher, the process is more complex, and the impact of poor hiring decisions becomes increasingly costly. I'm going to break this down into 4 major phases of company growth and examine how hiring practices need to evolve at each stage. Then I'll address some of the hiring challenges that companies face as they transition through these phases. Phase 1. The startup phase, growing to 50 employees. During this phase, most companies operate with what I call the friends and family hiring model. You're reaching out to your network, posting on LinkedIn, and the founders are typically involved in every hire. The entire hiring process is informal and network-based for the most part. Many companies at this stage don't have clearly defined jobs and are just hiring people to do the work that needs to be done. This makes sense when you're small. You need people who can wear multiple hats and fit into your emerging culture, people who you can trust. But here's the thing, and I've seen this mistake countless times. Many companies stick with this informal approach for too long. They keep using spreadsheets to track candidates, have inconsistent interview processes, and rely heavily on gut feel decisions. If you've been listening to the show, you've probably heard me say multiple times how important your first 50 hires are. They are your main A players, the ones who will make a difference and really determine whether your company keeps growing or fizzles out. Companies at this size don't have the bandwidth nor the capital to invest heavily in recruitment. So I generally like to recommend 2 things to founders. Number 1, clearly define why you're opening a new vacancy and what you expect from it as output when it is filled. In other words, what is this new role going to bring that you don't already have? This is important because every hire at this startup phase is critical and has to add value and bring something new to the table. Number 2, test the skills of anyone you haven't worked with before. Give them a short project that is paid so you can see if they are able to meet the expectations you have for the role. This is also an excellent opportunity to see if your top candidate fits well within the culture you are creating. Phase 2, the formalization phase, growing from 50 to 100 employees. This is where things get interesting. At this stage, you can no longer rely on spreadsheets and informal processes. You need systems and structure because the volume of hiring you're dealing with grows exponentially. The first critical step is implementing an applicant tracking system, or ATS. This isn't just about making life easier. It is about creating consistency and accountability in your hiring process. An ATS is necessary in formalizing a consistent hiring process. You also need to start thinking about standardization. This means creating proper job descriptions, salary bands, and formal interview processes. I can't stress enough how important this is. Without standardization, you'll end up with inconsistent hiring decisions and potential compliance issues. Your onboarding process should no longer be something like, "Welcome to our company, here's what we need you to start working on." At this point, you have a lot going on at your company, and it will be very difficult for new hires to get acclimated quickly without the proper guidance. Improve your onboarding process by creating some baseline documentation that new hires can refer to during their early tenure. This will alleviate your team from having to handhold anyone, and new hires feel more confident because they have a source of truth they can reference until they get a full understanding of how your organization functions. This stage is also a good time to consider hiring a dedicated recruiter, regardless of whether you have a full-time HR person or not. Hiring is very time consuming and requires focus for you to see results. One of the biggest mistakes I see companies make at this stage is resisting the formalization of their processes. They worry it will make them too corporate or slow things down. But here's the reality. Proper processes actually speed things up and improve the quality of your hires. When you hit this stage of company growth, you want to keep moving forward at the pace you need to and not be held back by your hiring practices. That's why formalizing your hiring processes makes a huge difference at this stage. Phase 3, the professionalization phase, growing from 100 to 500 employees. This is where hiring becomes a serious operation. I've seen companies hit this phase and still try to operate like they're a 50-person startup. That's like trying to run a restaurant with a food truck mentality. It just doesn't work. You need a dedicated recruiting team, robust HR systems, and detailed frameworks that guide your hiring operation. Your hiring managers need proper training. I've worked with thousands of hiring managers throughout my career, and only a handful of them ever received any form of recruitment training. You think that companies would want the people who make hiring decisions to be equipped with the knowledge and tools to make the best possible hiring decisions. The easiest way to do that is to empower your HR department or recruiting team to take the lead on this. They can either build a bespoke training program that fits your company, or they can help source the right third party to provide a program that meets your needs. Your interviewers also need standardized evaluation criteria. I spoke about this at length in the previous 2 episodes, so I won't dive deep into this one, but in short, all of your interviewers need to be evaluating candidates using the same criteria. This needs to be happening way before you reach this stage. But if it hasn't already been, this is the inflection point. Your recruiting team needs clear metrics and goals. At this size, tracking metrics such as time to hire, offer acceptance rate, and source quality are just the tip of the iceberg. Your recruiting costs can skyrocket out of control if you're not monitoring what is successful and what is not. At this stage, companies tend to heavily diversify their recruitment sources and investment in hiring goes up. I see a lot of companies who do this, but they don't optimize their sourcing strategies based on the data that's at their fingertips. Everything needs to be documented. Every application screening, every interview, every hiring decision. Companies at this stage are at an elevated risk of stepping on some compliance landmine. Make it a requirement to log all hiring activities in your ATS and hold hiring managers accountable for doing so. Phase 4, the enterprise phase, growing beyond 500 employees. At this scale, hiring becomes a complex operation and you'll likely need multiple recruiting teams, each specialized in specific job roles or departments depending on your hiring volume. Your employer branding needs to take a big step forward. You're in the big leagues now and competing with the top employers in your space. So positioning yourself as an employer of choice is no longer optional, but a key element to prolonged success. At this stage, you cannot afford processes that are manual in nature. You need to leverage automation and assessment tools whenever possible and do everything you can to streamline your hiring processes. The cost of inefficient hiring practices is exponentially more expensive than the earlier stages we discussed. Companies at this stage also tend to have a growing international workforce. So you need to make sure that your hiring processes are tailored to the global market and are accounting for the differences in laws and regulations. Now that we've talked about the 4 phases of company growth and how hiring practices differ in each, let's talk about the 6 key hiring challenges that companies face during their scaling journey. The first challenge is maintaining culture while standardizing processes. This is probably the biggest challenge I see. Companies worry that adding structure will kill their culture. But here's the truth. Good processes don't kill culture. They protect it. They ensure you're consistently hiring people who align with your values. The second challenge is balancing speed with quality. As you grow, the pressure to hire quickly intensifies. But rushing hiring decisions is expensive. A recent survey by Career Builder revealed that 74% of hiring managers reported making bad hires, and 41% said a bad hire cost them over $25,000. Don't be like most hiring managers. The third challenge is managing compliance requirements. This becomes increasingly complex as you grow. Each new jurisdiction adds another layer of requirements. You need systems and processes to ensure compliance while maintaining hiring efficiency. I see a lot of fast-growing startups get into hot water because they were careless. So be careful of compliance pitfalls and consult with a labor law expert for guidance. The fourth challenge is controlling costs. Hiring costs can spiral out of control if not managed properly. You need to track metrics like cost per hire, time to fill, and quality of hire to ensure your recruitment spending is effective. You also need to keep track of your success rates for each source. The fifth challenge is maintaining candidate experience. As you add more structure and process, it's easy to create a cold, impersonal candidate experience. You need to find ways to keep the human touch while scaling your processes. I like to create custom email templates for different stages of the hiring process and manually edit some elements when sending updates to candidates who made it to advanced stages in the hiring process. This makes the interaction more human and doesn't leave a bad impression when a candidate is faced with bad news. The sixth challenge is developing scalable onboarding. I addressed why this is important earlier in the episode, but poor onboarding can negate even the best hiring processes and decisions. Your onboarding needs to evolve as you scale, and the experience needs to be consistent across departments and locations. You want to deliver an onboarding experience that is uniform across your company while accommodating differences in job roles. Finally, I want to leave you with some actionable tips as you go through your scaling journey. First, you need to invest in the right systems and tools. This isn't just about buying software. It's about implementing systems that can grow with you. Don't just think about what you need now. Think about what you'll need in 12 to 18 months and beyond. If you'd like some help with choosing the right HR tools, I've shared a link to my free HR Tech evaluation template in the show notes section. Second, you need to add HR and recruiting headcount strategically. Many companies wait too long to make these hires, and that creates bottlenecks in their growth. Third, you need to update policies and procedures regularly. What worked at 50 employees won't work at 500. Your operation and its processes need to evolve with your growth. Fourth, you must invest in training your hiring managers. They're the ones making the final decisions, so they need to understand how to evaluate candidates effectively and consistently. Finally, you need sophisticated data tracking and analytics. You can't improve what you don't measure. And at scale, you need to be measuring everything. Well, that's all for this episode. In the next episode, I'll address capacity versus capability and why it matters in hiring. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a review wherever you get your podcasts. This will help me spread the word about organized chaos and keep the show going. If you have any questions or topics you'd like to suggest for the show, please send me an email to hello@organizedchaos.fyi. For more content and resources, make sure to check out the website at organizedchaos.fyi. See you on the next one.